All right, I plan to start documenting my build process on this motorhome project, but before I do that, I want to explain and take a few minutes to actually introduce it and kind of how I got to this point, because a few of my friends have made comments about the fact that I should start doing a YouTube series on the build and the process of how I'm doing what I'm doing, and the tools that go into it, and some of the processes that actually go into making this build possible. So before I do that, though, I want to talk about how I got to this point. Now, like a lot of kids growing up, my parents had campers, okay? And my parents were a little untraditional in the fact that they wanted to have a camper, but they didn't want to have your traditional camper. So I grew up with a camper called a Roman Chariot. And a Roman Chariot is a slide-in truck camper with aluminum frame. It was originally built in Spokane, Washington. And we had these things all the time growing up. Matter of fact, some of my fondest memories were going camping in the Roman Chariot camper with a good buddy of mine growing up, Jess Barker, and going riding and camping. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today, because many of my best memories growing up were actually riding and camping and going off in the middle of nowhere and finding new places and doing this all times of the year. There was one time I remember we did this in the middle of winter. We took my dad's four-wheel drive Ford F-250 over Snoqualmie Pass in 6 inches of snow one year. This is a two-wheel drive pickup, and we went riding, and it was 20 degrees over in Ellensburg, and we did it one year. And I'll never forget that. Other years we did this. We had a Dodge 4x4 truck, and both me and Jess were sleeping in the back, and our dads were sleeping above us, and both of our dads were snoring so badly that me and Jess both went into the cab to escape the snoring so we could actually sleep that night. I think we were probably about, I don't know, 12 years old or something like that, so 12 or 13 years old at the time. And some of my best memories growing up were doing the whole Roman Chariot and the motorhome thing. And eventually, this got to the point through college. My parents had different varieties of motorhomes. And then once I got out of college, my first motorhome was essentially a Dodge Diesel, Scotty Cerro Dodge Diesel. And it was a really cool motorhome. It was on a Dodge truck chassis, but the build quality was terrible. The build quality was kind of like this one, to be honest. This is very similar to the Scotty with a terrible build quality, but great chassis. And that's what the Scotty was. It's a great chassis. So after the Scotty, I cycled through a couple others, but eventually I landed with a Winnebago View, or also known as an Antastica Navion. And I love this thing. It had the Mercedes motor and it got great mileage. It was small, it's a 23 footer, could go in really tight places. It was not a powerhouse, but the problem we had is whenever we went traveling with this thing, we always towed a trailer. And the trailers were different lengths. Most of the time we towed our enclosed trailer, which was an aluminum framed enclosed trailer, which was really light and it worked really well. But the problem we had was between the trailer and the motorhome, it was about 40 feet worth of vehicle. And this made going into any cities on our trips really not a whole lot of fun. So the goal was to be able to get everything into one vehicle: bike hauler, sleeping, everything all in one vehicle. And that brought me to the next part, because after dealing with several motorhomes at this point, I wanted a motorhome with good build quality. So the motorhome that I'd picked next was a Bigfoot with the Ford E450 chassis. And I will say the Bigfoot build quality is a notch above all the others. Okay, it's really, really well built. It is a very heavy motorhome, but it's really well built. The downside to this motorhome, though, was the Ford E450 chassis. The Ford E450 chassis was terrible. Terrible handling. It wallowed all over the place. It would do 30 miles an hour up the pass, and it got 7 miles to the gallon doing it because it had the Ford V10. And I absolutely detest the Ford V10 from here on out after having that thing. We did one trip last summer from here all the way to Bend and back, and it was $1,000 in gas because it got 7 miles to the gallon. So no more of the Ford V10. So then that taught me a lot of things, because one, I was able to create a vehicle that had the garage in the back, so I converted the rear bedroom to be our garage for our bike area, which was great. We hauled the bikes and everything in it. The motorhome part was awesome, but driving the thing and the gas mileage was absolutely terrible. So That ultimately led me to figuring out something that, one, it needs to be a good road going chassis. Okay, it needs to be something that handles the road well, because when we do our trips, we do a lot of driving. We don't stay in one spot for very long. We do a lot of driving. So one, we need a good chassis. Two, it needs to be a diesel. It needs to get at least in double digits for gas mileage, for fuel mileage. So that ultimately led me to this one. This is a 2005 Gulfstream Endura. Okay, 32 foot, but it's on the Chevy Kodiak C5500 chassis with a Duramax diesel, an Allison transmission, and before I did any work to it, I did it for a trial run from here to Bellingham and back, and I got 11 and a half miles to the gallon, and that was just nothing done to it, no mods, anything. So with that, I decided to tear this thing apart, and that's going to lead me to my next series about what I discovered. But that's the introduction to how I ended up where I'm at, brief introduction, and why I picked this thing for my ultimate build-up vehicle.